And away we go. It is the BCJ podcast, brought to you as always by our good friends at the Holy Grail. And good news, the Holy Grail is in for another year. Not that that's a surprise, but they will continue to be our longest running sponsor and the #1 sports bar and grill in Cincinnati. So whenever you're down at the Banks, going to a Reds game or a concert or whatever it may be, make sure you're hitting up our good friends at the Holy Grail. Get yourself some nice cold beverages and some great food and an awesome atmosphere down at the Banks. They will get you taken care of. And make sure you're supporting those that support us. And super excited to have our good friends at the Holy Grail in for another year. And they'll also, it kicked in a little extra. They're going to be, Dave, how you like this? They're going to be sponsoring a couple road trips for Keegan Nickerson to be out on the road covering the Bearcats this season as well. So that's why they are the best.
I was at the Holy Grail today, in fact.
There you go. If you were down there, you gotta stop by the Grail. At least stop in and say hello.
Yeah.
And especially when you're in a suite, so you get free food and alcohol all day.
That's the only way I go to a baseball game, but yeah. It was good. It was good.
All right, we once again have a lot, not as much as last week, but still quite a bit to get to as the off season pushes forward and we get through camp and conference realignment and everything else that you have going on in the world of sports today. But before we get into our first segment, we'd like to thank our sponsors of the Big 12, whip around or preseason preview or whatever the hell we're calling it, Dave. It's brought to you by our good friends at Team Ticker. You can see the new one right here, the Sea Paw. Aaron's got the Bearcat. I've got the Sea Paw. And our good friends at Team Ticker. It's a one-of-a-kind sports sign for Bearcat fans. It's a high-tech retro display that provides daily updates of the latest news, stats, schedules, betting odds, and much more. No subscription required. If you're looking for the perfect addition to your man cave, a gift for that special Bearcats fan, or what better gift for a Bearcat fan to have in their dorm room or their apartment than Team Ticker? Go to teamticker.com and pick yours up today. All right, that brings us to our Big 12 segment this week, and we push on with the Houston Cougars. Rob Sellers, publisher of Cougar Digest, and Kevin from Cougar Digest, joining us today to get a preview on the Cougars, who will come to Nippert Stadium late in the season. And Dave, I will turn it over to you as always, gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
I do need to make a point here.
Okay.
We go to Houston.
They go to Houston. That's right.
Yes. All right. But anyway.
Too many ad reads in this.
Last trip to Nippert didn't work out so well. So how about they take a trip down here this time?
Most definitely. But obviously, a one of us moving up in the world. I'll start kind of where we seem to gravitate to with everybody is quarterback. Donovan Smith transfers in from Texas Tech. From the outside, it seemed like he was coming in to get the job. Maybe not handed to him, but you're transferring in. You probably feel like you're going to be the starter. Now that we are through spring, through the summer, and into regular season practice, is he 100% the starter, or is Lucas Coley have a shot in front of him? Like, kind of where does that all stand as far as you guys have been able to tell, a week or so into practice?
Yeah, Hokerson addressed it the first day, just backing up basically the remarks he made at Big 12 Media Day, saying that it was Donovan Smith's job to lose, basically based on his 22 starts he's already got in the Big 12. That was his job. Now, Lucas Coley did have a year head start on him in terms of learning the playbook and the offense and all that. So he reiterated day one that it was Donovan's job, but that Lucas wasn't quitting, and he had a great July since Hogerson made those comments even at Big 12 Media Day, that he had used that in a positive way and pushed himself some. So I think it's going to end up being Donovan Smith, but I think you'll see both of them early on because neither one of them really had very good experience specifically here at Houston. So they're going to want to try to get them in early and get them as acclimated as possible ahead of time before things start getting crazy.
obviously you're transitioning from a very, very veteran quarterback in Clayton Tune. What is some of Donovan, if he does end up holding on to the position, what are his kind of premier elements of his skill set that will give the Cougars, a good chance to have a successful season?
I think he's really a big dude for a quarterback. Like seeing him up close for the first time in the offseason, he's a big guy, 6'5", 250, I've heard maybe even as much. And so he looks every bit in terms of he's really tall in stature. He kind of towers over you. But when he's running, he doesn't really look 250 either. He looks lighter, and he has a good stride to him. I think for him to be successful this year, he's just got to work on not trying to do too much. I mean, he's going to want to try to step right in and fill the shoes that Clayton Tune left. And I think obviously they're going to need him to perform well for this offense to run. They went out and got him a ton of young receivers. And the running backs, even though they lost Alton McCaskill to Colorado, they've still got a really good stable of running backs, a lot of different styles and types of bodies back there. So I think they kind of have situational stuff all good back there. It'll come down like every year for these guys to the offensive line. But Donovan Smith's got to be able to step in there, provided the offensive line gives him a little bit of time, and just keep it easy at first. As things go, you know what I mean? He's going to have the early jitters and stuff like that. So he's got to do a good job of just, I would say, being a sponge early on and soaking all this stuff up early on so that when it comes meat and potatoes time and the games mean more and they're not so easy, he's more settled in by then. Everybody's kind of gelled up.
You mentioned McCaskill transferring to Colorado. Stacey Sneed comes back. He had a pretty good year coming in and probably not expecting to play nearly as much as he ended up doing. And then I think Houston brought in at least one running back transfer, I want to say from West Virginia. How does that room kind of shake out? And everybody thinks of Dana as, air raid, but he's really not really a tempo guy. And do you think he'll lean on those guys as Smith kind of, like you said, gets his feet under him and some of those wide receivers kind of realize that Tank Dell's not there and somebody's going to have to take those targets?
That's true, and I think they probably have a Tank Dell replacement on the roster. Maybe not quite ready just yet, but I think they've probably got a guy that they can fill in from all the young talent that they've had in the offseason. But yeah, the running back room, they had the West Virginia running back. He comes in with a ton of experience in the Big 12. They bring back Brandon Campbell as well, who missed a lot last year due to injury, but he was a USC transfer the summer before, and so he comes in with some good experience, and he looked real good. Matter of fact, he looked real well. He runs very violent, if you know what I mean. When you see his runs, it's always forward, always falling forward. He's very purposeful about the way he runs. So I think that's a good add with Stacey Sneed. They signed a couple guys, including a 4-star, kind of like an all-purpose back out of the Houston area in the last class. So they'll start looking for ways to kind of put him in. He's dangerous, fast, like a 10-3 type guy. And so as they've added this speed at the key positions, which has always been one of those things I guess they've kind of been able to do, but they're going to have to continue to build, different styles as well. You know what I mean? As you get into the Big 12, the weekly grind and the bangs and bruises and all that, it's going to add up. So they're going to have quality bodies back there to rotate. But I think they'll be good. It stinks a bit to lose Alton McCaskill. I think he's going to be a great running back. But I think if there was anywhere probably they could withstand losing a guy of that caliber, is probably the running back room, especially after they add another body.
With Tank gone, I'm assuming you were alluding to Matthew Golden as being the guy hoping to kind of step into his role, maybe not get as many targets as Tank got, but kind of be that next in line guy. Who else besides him on the outside are they going to feature and that fans should keep an eye out on?
So obviously, yeah, Matt Golden's one of the guys that everybody knows from last year as a freshman, and he's going to be a focus of the offense again. Sam Brown is a guy that was around last year, had some big plays, played here and there, and he's got a lot of promise to him as well. He is a guy that transferred in the previous summer as well. And Joseph Manjak's another guy. Missed a lot of time last year. He's going to wear number 0 this year. I was just doing a write-up on him today about the 0 jersey. He is very, very good, very hard-nosed player as a receiver. He's another guy that transferred back here from USC. And he can play all positions as far as wide receiver. That's one of the things they really like about him is that they literally can line him up at any of the spots, and he knows what he's doing. So those three guys obviously are going to be there. A couple of young guys. They signed there's a young man, Jonah Wilson, who's a true freshman, 4-star. They flipped from Texas in the middle of the season last year. Local guy, he got in, and he's looked good. It's just one of those with freshmen, how long is it going to take? Even Matthew Golden last year took a few games to really get going real good, and you could see the progress as the year went on. But if it's not going to be Matthew Golden, one of the guys I think I got my eyes on, one of the freshmen to contribute, hopefully this year, I would imagine, on the inside, kind of more of an Tank Dell role, is Jacoby Banks, another local kid. He was a high 3-star. He's similar to Tank in that he's small in stature. He's got that wiggle, very elusive, good burst of speed. You know, he's able to stop and start real well, stuff like Tank did to kind of create separation. So I think, again, they've got probably more talent on the roster this year at wide receiver, but less experience in that it's not there yet overall.
It's talent, but just not field talent yet, you know.
Fair.
Yeah. And Mikael Harrison Pilot also, the other freshman.
Oh, that's true. Yes. He was another freshman, 4-star, actually the highest ranked kid that they signed. He was more of an athlete in high school. They played him all around. We'll see how quick he adapts to being just a wide receiver at the college level. Talent-wise, I think he's ready to contribute. But, you know, as a wide receiver, he's probably going to have to learn some more of the nuances. But, yeah, he's another guy probably that, as far as the future goes for a wide receiver, they got a big crop of young ones last year. So,
yeah,
a lot of talent there. We're just going to see who pops first.
Well, Boogie Johnson also, Rob. Let's not forget Boogie Johnson also.
Again, yeah, it's been wild this offseason. I was just talking about this on the board as well. How hard it is in this day and age, just really for all of us. I would imagine you guys are in a similar position with predicting stuff with so many new faces coming and going from the transfer portal, and how's that going to fit? You know, I'm sure Cincinnati went out and got some Big 12 type guys. You know what I mean? To from the portal. And so you're looking at a guy like Holgerson was saying the other day, you got a guy that's got Big 12 experience and you got a returning starter from the AAC. Well, these guys are going at it in camp. Someone's going to win here. So with all these new faces, it's made it difficult. Kevin mentions Boogie Johnson. That's a transfer from Oklahoma State, another wide receiver that had a tremendous freshman year for them, and they were, you know, not happy to lose him. So again, there's a ton of talent. It's hard to figure out who's going to pop first, you know, who's going to be the first guy to kind of become the playmaker in the offense.
33 new guys at Cincinnati, 33 new scholarship guys, 23 of them are transfers. Only
41,
freshmen.
I think, was the number coming into camp for Houston, 41 new faces. So similar. It's just tougher and tougher to try to – how's that going to translate? You know, how does a guy coming from the Big 12 with 2 years experience, you know, if he wins, you know what I mean? It's tough to plug that in your brain to try to figure it out. But it's made it more fun, right? It's more interesting, something else to ponder and overanalyze for us. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're standing there with your roster, like at practice, like, is that?
Yeah, it's made it tough.
Yeah.
It really has.
Well, UC has one returning starter on the offense and one returning wide receiver in the whole room.
Wow.
So yeah, we've been.
I've always joked that Chris Scott, the returning wide receiver. Remember the last episode of Fresh Prince?
Yeah, he's just standing
there in the living room, like kicking air. Like that was Chris Scott this spring. Like, where happened to everybody? The shocking part is the wide receivers have been the story of the spring or the summer because they're really good. Like somehow they went out and restocked that room with a lot of talent when we were in April going, oh boy, like they might have to run 50 times a game.
Yeah, and I don't think the transfer portal could have come along better for the 4 schools that are making that transition right now.
Yeah.
Just for the ability to quickly flip a roster like that and add some more talent quicker than you would in the old school days. So
For sure.
it's probably come along at a good time in terms of these guys trying to quickly get up to speed in the Big 12.
Offensive line wise, Patrick Paul coming back very, very good. Offensive tackle, a couple other starters returning, but I noticed seemed like there was quite a bit of depth transfer out from the offensive line and maybe some projection starters as well. How is that group, you know, coming together and what do you expect from them given that, yes, they do return some key starters, but whether they were projection starters or depth guys, it felt like there was a lot of older players that transferred out of that room for some reason.
Yeah, coaching change got them in the offseason. They made a coaching change on the offensive line, and it did. They had one guy that was starter at left guard last year, Cameron Johnson, that followed the former coach over to Missouri. So that was one. They lost the left tackle that would have been back up to Patrick Paul this year, and Trevante Sylvester. He was kind of the tackle of the future, though. Again, that's where it hurts you in terms of not immediately, but now you got to figure out what you were going to do after Pat Paul leaves this year. So those having, Pat Paul, I think, is really, really starting to see his draft stock rise more and more. He's really good. We were talking just a couple weeks ago at an NIL event they were doing, and just the change in his body from when he came on campus to now. He was just a big kid back then. Now he's so lean that he's got a great playing weight, but when you see him without pads on, he's got so much room to still add body mass to him. So I think he's starting to see his draft stock really start to rise up. I've even heard a couple of people just giving him like maybe even first round type grade if he has a good year. So it's going to be the anchor over there on the left side. He's really good. They're going to need him to be really good, obviously, with the new quarterback back there. Jack Freeman at center comes back. He's a multi-year starter. Set for a year a couple of years back when they had a grad transfer come in, Cody Rusty, who was like a 4-year starter at La Tech, came in. And so it actually helped Jack a little bit sitting that 1 year and kind of learning from Cody after Jack had been thrust into the starting center's role unexpectedly the year before. So, again, Pat Paul and Jack Freeman's in the middle at center. Those two are pretty much locked in. The rest of the guys, it's kind of a hit or miss. They're piecing it together. They picked up Peyton Dunn is a guy they picked up from Louisiana. I believe Louisiana Monroe, and if I'm messing that up, one of the Louisiana schools, I apologize. But he had known the new offensive line coach, Iman Nagavi, from a previous coaching stint with him. So he brings a ton of experience in at left guard. He started multiple years at left guard over there. And so I think that's probably their initial answer on the left side there. And the right side, they bring a lot of guys back that have been in the rotation. They had a lot of injuries on the right side last year, but guys, they did lose the guy that's probably started the most games at right tackle last year. I almost forgot him. He did enter the transfer portal. Looked just for another opportunity with 1 year remaining type deal. So, again, this is the hardest part for me. They needed the most help was offensive line after they lost the few in the offseason. So I think they're pretty set in terms of they got bodies in there. Who's going to win the battle in camp type deal? They've had a couple transfers from Texas on the roster now for 2 years. Tyler Johnson, he's a guy that we got and talked to in camp the other day. And he has started a lot of games for them last year between right tackle and right guard. He moved around a little bit, but he's going to be in the picture there. Jalen Garth's another guy that came from Texas that will likely be in the depth mix there on the right side as well, probably at tackle. They went out and got another guy also from Florida International. His name is Shamar Hobby Lee. I've kind of got to know him a little bit in the offseason thanks to the NIL opportunities we've had to be around them. And good guy. He brings a lot of experience from Florida International. I think that might end up being one of the guys that's in the mix on the right tackle spot over there. So, I mean, I could keep naming guys that I'm not too familiar with, and it falls back onto that whole how are these guys going to plug in, and once this gets going. They're going to need to avoid the injury bug in 2023 for sure along the offensive line just because of the lack of depth there. But I think they've got a formidable front five for sure. It just kind of depends on, how else things play out around them and all that.
We'll flip it over to defense where in 2021 they were great. And then last year, it absolutely fell off a cliff and, finished, I think, 106th in SP plus defensively or something. I mean, something in the hundreds. And
sounds worse.
Reading magazines and stuff, it's like around maybe projected 3 returning starters. How do they get better this year and kind of where are the biggest improvements needed on defense?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest problem last year is losing the guys they lost. I don't think they realized they were going to miss them as bad as they did, but they lost, 2 cornerbacks that played in the league last year, Marcus Jones and Pepe Williams, and then losing Peyton Turner. That was the year before, but using Logan Hall from the interior line. They weren't as good up front pass rush wise, and then the corners dropped off last year a bit. and that obviously plays off.
Had
the
some injuries. Yeah.
Right. Kind of feeds off each other. So I think they will be all right this year. They've got corners back. They brought guys in. They brought a safety transfer in from New Mexico, who was a local guy and went to New Mexico and was a freshman All-American. Just blew up over there. Yeah, Adari Halsey, and had a lot of guys chasing him to land after the first year over there. And so he picked to come home to Houston. That seems to be a big ad from camp early on. A lot of guys talking about there. They got a few guys back healthy. Alex Hogan missed a lot of last year due to injury. And he's a corner, but he's going to come back, and he'll be their starting nickel this year. So, again, experienced guy. He was a tech transfer a couple of seasons ago, so he's got a ton of experience. Again, similar to the wide receivers, I think they may have more talent on this year's roster than they did last year, but how quickly does it mature and grow? I mean, they've had some guys. Last year, Jalen Emery was a young guy that had to step in and play due to injury, and he kind of grew as the year went on. You really literally saw him get better. So, guys like that are going to come in and they're going to grow. And some guys are going to take a few years to get there, but who are the ones that are going to pop and be ready early for you? Hopefully, again, in a few spots on the roster, they're going to need some guys, some new faces to come in and be able to contribute right away.
Where do you
and another returner?
If
I can, another returner, Nelson Caesar, should I think make an impact on the edge there also. We saw flashes last year. Yeah.
He'll be disruptive in the backfield. Yeah.
Where is the best, given a lot of either guys stepping into expanded roles or brand new roles, like where do you think, looking at it from, say, Cincinnati's perspective, where are they most, where do you think they'll be most vulnerable if things don't, gel? Is it up front still? Is that still possibly, running, stopping the run is going to lead to other issues? That typically happen, but is that where, it's kind of where the issue might still be?
Yeah, probably so. Now defensive line, I like where Houston's at on that. They've got a real solid defensive crew coming back, and they've got a ton of guys, and they will rotate them big time. So I'm not worried so much about the defensive line, but offensive line is going to be an issue for them. When you look at weak spots like that type thing where people are going to be able to take advantages, for sure the secondary is going to have to prove itself early on for people not to pick on them just because of last year. So they're going to have to prove, they're going to have to get tested a little bit and prove that they can stop it before they're going to have people not do it anymore. So it's one of those things. It's got to gel. It's got to be better than what last year was. I think injuries obviously hurt them some, the departure of the two corners to the league and whatnot. That hurt them, but I think they still got a lot of good big pieces that are coming back. They'll take a step forward this year for sure, despite the competition step. But again, that's another part of the equation that's tough to really kind of fit in there when you try to see just how improved they're going to be. You realize it's not the same competition as it was a year ago.
Schedule-wise, it seems pretty tough. You're giving yourself no favors starting with UTSA right out of the gate. And then
that one's got carryover from last year because UTSA lost at home in overtime.
2015.
Yeah.
So you got that, and then you obviously have your guys' schedule: Texas Tech, Kansas State, Baylor, TCU. So what are kind of knowing a lot of the changes, especially with returning production? When you lose McCaskill, Tank Dell, and Clayton Tune, your returning production numbers are going to be super low.
Yes.
So with that equation, and then moving into the Big 12 part of the equation, what are kind of the expectations around the program, around the city, from your members, things like that, going into year one in the Big 12?
It seems mostly like the consensus is, and the AD has said as much too, Chris Pesman, the kind of the floor for this is going to be a 6-win bowl game type situation. That seems to be they think that's the floor, so to speak. And I think that's pretty close for the fans as well. Some of them won't pick quite that high. Some of them will, homer it up and pick, 7, 8, 9, 10 wins or something like that. But 6, 7 wins to me seems about where it needs to be for there not to be any offseason distraction and discussion of how hot someone's seat is and this and that. I think 6 wins in a bowl game kind of gets you right on down the road, and I think they're in a spot they can keep building. If things head south and they don't get to that 6 wins, which is going to have to include several wins early in the season as you look through that schedule, like you just did. Then things, I don't know, it could get rough. I think it's one of those things. If the wheels start to fall off down the stretch, it start to get rough down in the later half of the season. So they're going to need to get early success, get their feet under them, and get some confidence going as they hit that Big 12 schedule. And if you get there with having no losses or maybe just a loss, then you got to find you a couple wins there. So yeah, I'd say 6-7 wins is about where the realistic people are at for them this year.
What happens if it's only 4?
Well, if it's only 4 and there's no considerable,
as long as one wins is Texas.
Yeah, well, that's different, of course. They wanted real bad for that Texas game to be in Houston this year. They knew they were only going to get one shot at them, so they really, really, really wanted to get them in Houston. So
I mean, we hear a lot about Tillman and Dana's relate. Like, is that as tight as people make it out to be?
They are extremely tight. They do have a good relationship, but like he said, like Chad said, if you get to 4 wins and there's not really a really good excuse for it, and it's just simply things aren't clicking and not working, I think it's going to be a busy offseason for Cougar Digest. And yeah, I think it could be.
Right.
I know Dana came out recently and was came across as real confident in his buyout being kind of out of reach toward it nicer than you did.
Never good.
I don't know that that's the case.
I mean, is any buyout out of reach for Tillman Fertitta if he really?
True. Really, that's what it kind of boils down to. And a lot of people kind of backhandedly joke that he'll be fired when Tillman's ready to fire him, basically.
Right.
So, but again, when you boil it all down, friendships are friendships and all that. But I don't think Tillman put his money where his mouth is for it to be a mediocre program. And they fought so hard to get to the Big 12, and so they're going to want to see that things are heading in the right direction, So I think they do. I do think they have the roster to get there, but you know how season goes, man.
Are you guys looking at this like we are? Like every game almost feels like a coin flip. Like it.
Yeah.
There's maybe
obviously,
a game or two where you're like,
obviously the games
probably
like
not going to win that one. But
Texas and stuff like that, right? Your obvious ones, you're probably not going to win, but. Yeah, it comes down to those games like West Virginia at home on a Thursday night. That's going to be something you're probably going to need to make sure you win because the wins aren't going to be easy to come by, And the ones you do get at home, obviously, I mean, I don't know, TCU, they're coming off the season they had. I know they replaced a lot, but you get Baylor at home. It's always tough telling. Oklahoma State comes here. So, I mean, you got to find you a couple in there somewhere. West Virginia seems like one.
Everybody in the conference is circling that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we can get that one.
And I mean, obviously, the storylines are going to write themselves for that one with them coming here, even with Dana being.
Well, I mean, if I'm a Houston person, I'm thinking we better beat Cincinnati at home. They just had a coaching change and half the roster turned.
Right, it's your podcast, though. I was trying to be nice.
Oh, hey, we're very realistic about things. Like,
it's true.
If I'm a Houston fan, I'm going, we better not lose at home to those guys.
If you're looking for teams you think should be weaker this year that you hope to get one of those wins against, right? The writing on the wall with the coaching change and all the turnover, sure. But I know Houston people are looking at Houston the same way. Look at all the, like you just mentioned, Toon and Dell and McCaskill and 2 starting offensive linemen. It's easy to start saying, well, Houston ain't going to be able to move the ball, so that's going to be one that we need to get to. So it's going to be interesting. I'm really interested to see though how these 4 new schools do this year. Who's best prepared for? I know the schedules are all different and all that, but it'll be fun to kind of watch. And I know the fans are watching for sure. They remind every chance they get on the board about what the other schools are doing. So they love to point out what everybody else is doing. So I'm sure
the beautiful part of it is the irony of this all is you would think. Like, hey, Houston's got a bunch of guys that played against Cincinnati for an AAC championship 2 years ago, but the reality is there's going to be like 4 guys on the field that played in that game combined between the 2 teams.
Cedric Williams, one of the tackles, he brought that up. Well, I was going through one of his videos a while ago, and he was saying that I was asking him if the team was ready for the Big 12 or whatever, and he was talking about there's a big group of guys that have done They beat Auburn in the bowl game a couple years ago. They played Cincy in that big, marquee game up there in Nippert and all this stuff. So they've had some big game experience, played Kansas last year and this and that. There's some things that they've been able to gauge themselves with. They always haven't necessarily performed as well against those teams or maybe come away with the win, but they shouldn't be shocked by what they see for sure. They've seen these teams for a while.
Yeah. I just think it's funny that there's so few because of the portal and everything.
Right,
so
in just a couple years.
That played in that game 2 years ago. 2 years, like it wasn't. We're not talking 3 or 4 years where there's going to be considerable turnover. Like no, like not last year, but the year before. 18 months ago, these two teams played for a conference championship, and the two teams that take the field will look nothing alike.
Not many holdovers probably at all.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking
it's the new college football.
Deshaun Pace.
Cincinnati.
Deshaun Pace, Dave. Who? Deshaun Pace and Taj Ward.
Chris Scott. One guy on offense, maybe.
That's crazy.
In the entire offense.
I know it's not that bad over here at Houston. Just in terms, they haven't lost that much. I mean, half y'all's roster went to the NFL after that year.
Yeah, that's what Cincinnati lost almost that whole roster to the NFL.
Yeah,
which is not a bad problem to have, but it is we need to replace it now.
You got anything else, Dave?
No, I'm all set.
Gentlemen, it's been a treat. I'm sure we will cross over some content as we get closer to that game coming up this winter. So
we'll hop on for sure. We'll have our podcast running by then as well, and we'll switch opportunities or whatever in season.
Tell everybody where they can keep up on everything going on with Houston.
For sure, check us out on the website, Cougar Digest. You can catch me on Twitter at Rob_Sellers_. Kevin's on the site. Kevin, are you on Twitter?
I am, but I haven't set anything up yet. I filter everything through you. So in time.
Kevin's kind of just started joining the team. He's been doing a heck of a job, and he's going to get us squared away on more video stuff. So
we're happy to have him. Happy to bring you guys on, let you see kind of. I know, Rob, you reached out and said like, hey, I got a guy that wants to see kind of how the StreamYard thing works and how you guys do the YouTube stuff. So absolutely happy to have you guys come on and check it out. And if you have any questions,
anything you need.
Yeah, I appreciate that for sure.
All right, gentlemen. Well,
awesome.
Have a great night, and we will.
All right, you guys do the same. We'll catch up during the season. Y'all have fun.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Rob Sellers and Kevin from Cougar Digest joining us this week for the Team Ticker Big 12 preview. Kevin, if you want, you can hang out in the background and watch the rest of the show or however much you want. Feel free if you want to get a feel for things. So there you go, Dave. That'll bring us to our first timestamp of the night. Unless you got other Houston, you want to talk anything else about Houston or?
No, I'm good. I think they covered it quite well, and we're. I mean, I think of them and UCF, our fans are the most familiar with, but even them with we talked about replacing their three premier offensive players from not just last year, from the last several years. I'm sure there's fans out there that don't know don't really know much about who the new quarterback's going to be, or don't really know what wide receiver they're going to be looking at to fill the role Tank Dell did so well for them. So.
I mean, look, we know what it's like to lose a 14th year senior at quarterback.
We do.
Been there not too long ago.
Yeah.
There's your first timestamp. The Turtles Brew timestamp. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, gluten-free, bourbon-infused sweet tea, cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla. 50 locations. You can find them in Greater Cincinnati. Visit turtlesbrew.com to check out where you can get them and more information. Part of the proceeds go to Save the Turtles. They are in Cincinnati, Toledo, and now expanding into Central Ohio. 6% ABV. Dave can attest. A delicious, refreshing summer drink. And while you're out there, everybody's on the hunt for Cincy Light right now. While you're out there, just check and see if you can find yourself a half gallon of the Turtles Brew. I love that that's how they sell it. Just like a half gallon. Yeah.
Big tea jug.
Yeah. It's the whole story to me last week was fascinating to hear. Like,
absolutely.
Crap, I'm not allowed to drink alcohol anymore, or not allowed to drink beer anymore. Guess I'm gonna have to make my own creation.
I'll just make my own.
and then go commercial with it and sell it all over the state.
Yeah.
It's an awesome story.
It's pretty funny.
It is.
But yeah, so want to fill everybody in. I put it out on Twitter earlier, but for those that aren't using the Twitter, the schedule is for the BCJ podcast and guests is set for now until the season starts. So obviously this week we had Houston. Next week we'll be talking BYU. The week after BYU with, I think his name is Jeff Hansen, also 24/7 Sports, which, I mean, selfishly speaking, this change to the Big 12 has made our jobs significantly easier when it comes to talking about Bearcat opponents. But and then the week after that, the 23rd, one of my favorite episodes every year, we'll have Anthony DeFino from the athletic department on with us, talk, Nipper, fan experience, the grid, whatever's new this year. So we always like to get him on right before the season starts. And then the 30th is the season preview show. We are four shows away from the season. So
crazy.
And unfortunately, we couldn't quite squeeze in the Central Florida Golden Knights, but I'm sure no one's really going to be too hard pressed to not hear me have to strain through talking to those guys.
We could do a double episode next week. We could do Utah or BYU and UCF.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Yeah, can we even realistically do one of those without getting in a fight with whoever it is that's covering them?
I mean, I could come up with questions, but
sure, that part wouldn't be hard, but the jokes would be it would be so hard to not tell the jokes, right?
It would just, I just would rather not.
We'll get you everything but Central Florida information.
Trace Trocco from Sons of UCF I liked him.
Yeah, I mean they've got some guys that are pretty right down the line, but I think they're on that Big 10 or Big 10-12 network or whatever, and we try to keep it in the family. And I don't think I'm not sure they have I know they have a board that runs pretty well, but I'm not sure.
They've gone through 5 publishers. Though.
They have. But that kind of sets the pace from now until the season. So we won't be lacking of things to continue to talk about. That's for sure.
Yeah. There's big things coming. Big things coming here. Big things coming on the BDP. Maybe something else.
What else is coming here?
And just what you just talked about.
Oh,
There's
okay.
big shows coming.
It's what else do I have going on?
There's big shows coming here leading into the season.
Got it.
There'll be good stuff on the BBP, and then maybe something else bubbling for a different night this week, every week, that is new and that I think people will be really, really excited about if we get to it. We've been in negotiations with The Rock to see if The Rock of Truth is going to return this year.
The Rock is going to be on our network?
Potentially. The Rock, yeah. Not Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, that's what I thought you meant.
No. Jake Sopko.
Said The Rock. I was like, okay.
The Rock, yeah, The Rock of Truth.
Oh, okay, got it.
They've been on our network. They're part of the family.
They have. When is the Garrett Campbell, Kyle Trout podcast coming to the network?
We're working on that. There's only so many nights in the week,
right?
So, we're trying to squeeze everything in. A lot of it is depending on this new project that is bubbling that will impact how the rest of things play out. But if it happens, I'm really excited.
Well, I can't wait.
It's going to be fun. And then Bearcat Brunch is back on Sundays.
Hell yeah.
Sunday mornings. So
ready to go.
It's going to be exciting. It's going to be good stuff. Cam, I've talked about all I can, I've covered every angle I can think of. Do you have questions for me about essentially what is the first week of camp?
I mean, it's hard. It's tough because I haven't been there yet. So it's
yeah.
And you guys do, you've written your reports and you guys talked about it Monday and we interviewed the coaches. I would just, just kind of a week in, I'm not going to say like compare and contrast to a Fickle camp, but just like a week in, what has even, it doesn't even necessarily have to be like a position group, because like the easy answer is like the wide receivers have surprised me. But like a week in, what is your overall, like when you watch it, when you sit down, when you think about it, do you watch and you say, man, I'm not sure how we're going to win 5 games? Do you say, man, these guys might win a couple more that we're not thinking about? Do you just feel like the talent, like watching the overall talent level, does it feel similar to what we have been accustomed to seeing the last few years, knowing full well that the schedule is totally different and the results might not be the same, but like what you're watching, does it feel similar?
Does it feel similar to the team that went to the college football playoff? No, it doesn't.
No,
feel
probably
similar
not.
to that.
But like, how about the year before that and then last year?
You still had on that team the year before that, 14 guys that ended up playing in the NFL.
Yeah, but they also had games where they, played.
Yeah, and they did. I mean, but that's football. Like I don't begrudge them for that. That's how it works. What I would say is there's more talent at the top of the roster than I anticipated, which, you know me, I'm ultra cautious on this stuff. Like, I want to see it. I'm not going to just, hey, this guy came from Florida, so he has to be good. Like, I've been doing this a long time. I don't buy that shit. Like, I'm not that easy to fool. So you're going to have to show it to me before I buy into it. And I'm starting to buy into it more. Right? Like, I'm starting to look at it and say, okay, the demise of the wide receiver room was potentially premature.
Right.
Because there's dudes in that room. Like, Braden Smith is electric. Like, I don't know any other way to describe that dude than electric. Now, let's see what happens as we go through the second week of camp. Now that he's been tagged by the defense, right? Like, now that they know, okay, like, this dude's not sneaking up on us anymore. D. Wiggins has kind of not been as, like, we talked about him a ton in the spring, right? He's still been good, but he hasn't been as, maybe as prominent as he was in the spring. That also could have been because him and Donovan Ollie were the only two guys that could catch pass in the spring. We were, and this is not a dig, but we were talking about Leslie Ando a ton in the spring. Like, you would hope you're not talking about a walk-on as one of your top 2 or 3 wide receivers. It
was more like Leslie Endo's been good, all things considered.
Right. So there's still a lot of development and storylines that are going to play out between now and when camp breaks in 12 days or whatever it is. But I like the depth on the defensive line. I'm starting to like what we're seeing at that dog position behind Greshik with Jamal Williams and Tyler Gillison. And remember, I would guess Sincere Lewis when he returns from injury. It might not be this year, but like ultimately he's going to fit back into that mix as well. Safety, I think, has been pretty solid. Safety's really difficult in a camp setting because they're not allowed to hit, and that's their job for the most part, is to come up and hit or to make plays over the top. You don't get to see a ton of that in camp, but I like what I've seen from threats. Taj Ward has been solid, as you'd expect. DJ Taylor has made some plays. So, a positive momentum there. Offensively, I mean, I think it's still like it's going to come down to the tackles. I feel good about what they have inside, and we've talked about that. And now you've added, they seem to be really confident in D'Artagnan Tinsley. So that's another one that you just, okay, now if you feel good about Gerhardt, Kandra, Radosevic, and Tinsley, you've got 4 guys for 3 spots. And I think that's, a good sign. Now, can John Williams continue to make progress at left tackle? And DeAndre Buford at right tackle. Those have been the 2 main guys. Philip Wilder has been kind of the swing guy. If I feel if I get through the next 10 days, especially talk to me Sunday or Saturday night, Sunday. If I feel that the tackles held up in the scrimmage, I'm going to start feeling a lot better about this offense than I thought, because they're going to run the ball. They're going to have success running the ball. And it might be a lot of 2 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards, 17 yards, to where it's still 5 yards a carry or whatever, but they get there in a little bit different ways. But if I feel better or more confident about the tackles, I think they're going to be able to throw the ball, especially over the top. Emory Jones throws a really good deep ball, and they got a couple guys that can go get it, which we had no clue coming into camp.
So if
no clue.
We just talk tackles, so let's exclude them. Kind of spin it a week or so in. If things don't show themselves better in the next week or so, whether it's depth is a concern or whether it's just the group is just does not seem to be showing them much, like where would those concerns be?
I think I'm not as concerned about the run game, because those 2 guys they're a little bit undersized. They're athletic. They can get out and move in space, which I think is a lot of the outside zone, man. You don't have to just line up and maul somebody. You're moving left to right, and you can use leverage, and you can be smaller and have that be effective. But in the passing game, that's where I think it's going to manifest itself. Like, if you look at Emory Jones through his career, when he's had a clean pocket, he's been pretty good. And when he's had to, at Arizona State, there was a lot of times he was running for his life, which isn't fair to put on a quarterback. But when he's had to make a super quick read or make a really important short throw, those have been kind of his areas of concern. If you're struggling at both tackle spots, I don't care how good you are at guard and center.
Right.
Like, you're gonna speed up your quarterback, and that for me is really the thing. Like, if there's occasional pressure, that's football. If there's constant where he's now getting jittery, and what does he do best, Dave? What have we talked about that he does best? Throw the deep ball. If he can't stand in the pocket and feel comfortable to go 1, 2, let it go without, an avalanche coming down on him, then the offense is in trouble, because if he can set up and throw the deep ball, that opens up the run game. That opens up everything else, because the safeties have to back off. I mean, it's just standard common football knowledge. They can't stack the box to stop the run if you're beating them over the top 3-4 times a game.
How many more good to really good wide receiver days is it going to take before we maybe go, maybe the DBs stink?
So here's the thing that I think that's been interesting, and I get where you're coming from on this.
Because it's hard to go from where we. I know, but I'm setting the table for it.
Let me finish. You can add on in a second. What I will say is, I haven't felt bad about the coverage as much as these guys have just been making plays. So, like the drill we talked about Tuesday or Monday, where they were just lining guys up and running straight down the field, man against man. The DBs were in, hand up, in good coverage, and the wide receivers were making plays on the ball. I'm not overly concerned if a DB is in good position and has his head around you know, and the wide receiver makes a play. We haven't seen a bunch of guys just getting beat. Where I'm curious to continue watching is we have seen quite a bit of guys finding holes in the defense over the middle. Braden Smith, Aaron Turner, we've seen Xavier Henderson running some stuff over the middle. We've seen Shimon Mateer making plays. Now, what would that tell you, Dave? They're sending heat from everywhere. And
they're not communicating responsibility. That's the thing. It's like, I love Brian Brown's defense, but they gave up a lot of big plays at Louisville because if you don't get there, there's just not bodies. It's not, the guys might not really be out of position. There's just, if you send multiple players into a specific gap and they don't make the play, there's just no one there. It's not like, oh, this guy missed a tackle. It's like there's no one there to even tackle the guy.
Well, and also, like, you know, you're bringing Brian Threats on a blitz from safety, and you're dropping Dan Greshik into coverage to replace it. Well, I would take Brian Threats in coverage over Dan Greshik. Like, that's just common sense. Like, Threats is 5'10", 200 pounds. He's going to be a lot better in coverage than a guy that's 6'3", 260 or whatever Greshik's listed at. Like, I made that up. I don't know what he's listed at.
I mean, that was a hallmark of especially Marcus's defenses is someone would fill, but there was always someone to replace. Right. And that's, you know, if the DBs and the safeties aren't communicating and guys are running across the middle or, you know, because they're thinking this guy's dropping when this guy should be rushing. I mean, it just, you know, it makes me a little nervous that a group that we had so many questions on added 3 or 4 guys, and now they're so good that they're working over some.
Let's also note that a lot of this is in reaction to the fear that the wide receiver room was going to be terrible.
Right. But that's why I said, like, how many more days? Like, I'm not saying now.
But and maybe this is my fault. The DBs haven't been terrible. The DBs have made a bunch of plays. The one guy maybe that, like, if I'm going to be, like, straightforward, the one guy that I think hasn't looked like he did in the spring was Jordan Young.
Yeah, I mean, in your practice reports and like, I don't think mentioned him one time.
He's not getting pass breakups. He's not. It felt like he had an interception, at least one interception, every time I watched him in the spring.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he did, and that's where I'm coming from. Like, you bring in some better receivers who, let's be real, this isn't probably going to be one of the better receiver rooms in the Big 12.
I think it'll be above middle of the pack. I'll say that.
I might beg to differ a little bit there.
You haven't been to practice. How can you beg to differ?
Well, I know what the rest of the Big 12 has at receiver.
Oh, you've been to those practices?
A couple of them.
Okay. Like, come get your eyes on it and see what we're seeing before. I think middle of the pack to slightly above middle of the pack is safe like a safe place to categorize where this receiver room is.
Right. Okay. So even if that's true, then he's going to be seeing a lot of guys that are as good or right around as good or a little bit better, a little bit worse. So, you know, he's probably the biggest one because, I mean, if he's supposed to be your 1A, you know, your CB1, I want to hear him doing a lot more stuff a week into camp than it seems like that he's done.
No, that's fair. I mean, I've had that conversation with a couple people just to make sure that I'm like, we talk about this a lot. I don't ask people questions like randomly. I ask people questions that are along the lines of, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing?
Because wide receiver, wide receiver DB matchups are very easy to see who wins. You either make the catch or you don't. You either knock the ball away or you get the interception or.
But there's still stuff like what is he playing with the right technique? Is he in the right position? If he's getting beat, did he do so? Look, Dave, you know the deal. You've watched enough football. Sometimes the DB does everything right, and the receiver and the quarterback are on the same page. Quarterback makes a great throw. There's nothing the DB can do.
Sure.
So, but I haven't seen him making the plays that he made in the spring. How much of that is Emery's getting better and more comfortable in the offense? How much of that is the receiver room? The guys that he's guarding now are not just D. Wiggins, like more talented. So when he was guarding somebody not D. Wiggins, the drop-off was substantial. Right. And how much of it is like he maybe is just still – he's not having a great camp so far. And I think part of it, like I'm concerned of the third part because it felt like every day in spring was like, damn, Jordan Young made another play. Damn, Jordan Young made another play. And right now, if I go through 5 days of notes, I don't know how many times his name is on my paper.
Right. Hey, that's
a concern. That has to be a concern.
I love, on paper, in philosophy, the defense, but you are asking whether it's new, inexperienced, whatever word you want to use to characterize secondary to hold up. If you're going to blitz that much, I mean, you're not going to get there every time. So is it going to be totally feast or famine? Or are we going to be, are these guys going to be able to make enough plays to keep teams from just being like, hey, we know they're going to come, so we're just going to do, whether it's quick game, whether it's, flood an area, things like that, where you got some guys that either haven't played a ton for UC, haven't played a ton in their careers, period, are stepping into different positions with a new defense. So, I know we all love defense. We think the defense is going to be good. I think the defense is going to be good. I like a lot about the front seven. I want to come out there and see some stuff, but that would be my kind of concern based on what you guys have talked about a week in, is just kind of how is the secondary meshing with the philosophy of what they're going to be asking the front seven to do.
Yeah. I mean, Sammy's been great. Like Sammy's been really, really good. So, as much as I've been wanting to see more of Jordan Young, I feel like Sammy is filling that void. The other thing I think is weird is we're not talking about a nickel. You know what I mean? Like for years we've talked about corner as a three person position group. So Deshaun Pace is doing a really good job covering that position.
So like when who typically without a quote unquote nickel, like is Deshaun covering Braden Smith?
A lot of the time, yeah.
Interesting.
Like he's the strong side coverage guy. So tight end, slot receiver, like those are his responsibilities. Because they don't have a third, like they have 4 DBs on the field. Again, like I told you, like I've been saying all along, this to me reminds me of like a zone blitzing 3-4 defense.
Yeah.
Where you have a rush end, like a rush linebacker, you have a coverage linebacker, 2 middle linebackers, and then 4 defensive backs. So I'm still getting accustomed to watching that because it's not something it's not an alignment I've ever covered before. And I'm not a football savant by any stretch of the imagination. So, there's a lot of times I'm watching it and going, okay, this is how this works. This is how that works. But then there's other times, like yesterday I talked about Threats got a sack that I was like, where the fuck did he come from?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where was he in this alignment that he was there that quick to get to the quarterback? And they're getting to the quarterback a good deal, but they're also, when they're not getting to the quarterback, seeing, a lot of big plays made.
Right, the ball go over their head.
Yeah. That's I'm sure some of it is going to get more and more interesting as the week goes by, because now what happens, the offense is going to figure out the defensive alignments. The defensive alignments are going to figure out what the offense is in and be able to point it out pretty quickly. But it's the age-old question in camp, Dave, right? Like, we're talking about the wide receivers. So if we're talking about the wide receivers, does that mean the DBs stink?
Right.
Or we're talking about the running game, which the running game has looked pretty good. Oh, no, we're at a 3-down front again, and the running game is killing us.
Yeah.
Like, it's – I think rightfully so at this point. And to be clear, the defense has been ahead of the offense. I just think we were prepared for the offense to be so bad.
Right.
We expected it to look like the Bengals looked today against the Packers.
That's my thing is I'm not saying that I have like blinded trust in the defense, and I don't think there could possibly be a way.
Concerns there.
Right. But if you'd have told me, like, I would much rather the offense be doing what they've been doing. Because if you'd have told me the defense looks great, the offense can't move the ball, I'm going, we're not going to score 15 points a game this year.
Right. Right.
I'd much rather be like, the offense looks a lot better than we thought. And yes, does that mean the defense might not be top 20? Sure. But they're still probably going to be good.
There's a lot of talent.
Right, exactly. There's more returning talent. There's, the scheme. There's just more talent in general on that side of the ball, especially at the top line, starters. Whereas, if you're just like, man, the defense looks incredible, I'm like, okay, great. But like, we kind of thought that they could be very good. I'm much more concerned that the offense is anemic because, you're not going to win many games in the Big 12, 17-13.
No, you gotta put up points.
I mean, Iowa State showed us that last year. I mean, they have one of the best defenses in the country, and number one across the board. Yards allowed, rushing yards allowed, pass yards allowed. Won 4 games.
Yeah. Why? Because when the opponent put up 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, they couldn't respond. So when a game went from 10-7 to 21-10, they were doomed. They were cooked. I'm hoping what we're seeing is an offense that's going to be able to score more than 24 points a game in this league.
Mm-hmm.
If once I feel confident in tackle, I'll feel better about making that leap, because I feel like the talent on offense is substantially better than we feared in like March, April.
Yeah, right.
And that's why I think it's been the story of camp. Have we probably done a little bit of a disservice to the defense at times? Because we've been
it's more of a known quantity, at least from a player standpoint.
Right. I didn't go in wondering a lot about the defense. So now the camp coverage philosophy has to switch, right? Okay, well, let's focus on the defense a little bit more and see why and dig in on why the offense is having more success than we anticipated. Is it because there's more talent? Is it because Satterfield's an offensive coach and knows how to scheme, offense a little better than we maybe gave him credit for? I think that's something we have to talk about too, right?
Yeah.
So it's nuanced, and we're only a weekend. And we still have, Friday and Saturday of this week. They'll practice tomorrow, but it's closed, so we won't be there. So they have 3 more days this week and then another full week at higher ground. There's going to be a lot to unpack. And that's the fun we talked about this camp, right? Is because there is so much that's unknown. And then when this becomes known, then, okay, well, then now we need to dig a little bit more into this.
Right.
And, we'll talk to Brian Brown over the next week and say, hey, what's happening? Like, you guys are getting some pressure. You're doing some of the sack stuff. But there's some guys running free, and there's some deep balls, and there's some runs that are hitting. Like, how do you figure it out? Hopefully, what all of this over the first week means is that things aren't going to be as bad on offense as we dreaded that they would be. We're not talking about Emory Jones throwing a lot of picks, putting the ball in danger. Like, a lot of times when he misses to where, it's incomplete.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's another thing too, like, that is encouraging from Emory's standpoint, because I mean, we were pretty honest about it in the spring. Like, I don't think it wasn't super impressive, and it doesn't sound like, from what your reporting has been and everything, that, like, there hasn't really been any days where you're just like, man, he just didn't have it today. He probably completed 48% of his passes and threw 3 interceptions, and
right.
And the receivers and the quarterback just weren't on the same page.
Receivers were open, but there weren't completions. Like, balls were being missed.
Right.
Easy plays were being missed.
It doesn't seem like we've had any of those days.
Right. There haven't been. Not yet.
So, but I don't know. I mean, if you're a member and you're watching this, I'm sure you're reading reports and watching videos, and so I'm not sure I have like a whole bunch of new stuff to ask you about. Obviously, I believe I'm gonna be able to get out there Friday, and then I will definitely be there Saturday as long as this weather cooperates. So
yeah,
it'll be nice. Hopefully, there's a good lunch on Friday.
I was so mad. Sunday, they practiced Sunday, but it was closed to the media, and they had Monterey Ranch chicken sandwiches.
Oh my! Well, we need to call someone then and make sure they have them on Friday.
Well, my fear is tomorrow is closed. They're practicing, but it's closed. They're going to have them again tomorrow.
Oh no!
If we go through a camp where I don't get a Monterey Ranch chicken sandwich.
The travesty of not getting the exact free meal you want.
Yeah, exactly. It's about me, Dave.
Well, the other sad part is that we can't. It's not like we can go to Velvet Smoke anymore either.
No, that doesn't exist anymore.
That's a bigger deal than any of it.
Right. We have to rely on them to feed us because our go-to option doesn't exist anymore.
But
maybe we'll just go to Freddy's one day.
Are they still playing the Purge song?
No, I haven't heard the Purge at all. The only they do Pump It Up. They have like Pump It Up. I don't know what it is, like what they try to accomplish with Pump It Up, but they play Pump It Up and they do a live third down play, and that's it. And they go to the next, like it's like a in between thing. Where they're like in a period, they'll play Pump It Up. Everybody will get together. They'll do one snap of team, and then they'll go back into install or like.
So are we breaking news that the Purge might not be the third down song anymore?
It's just not been a staple at Camp Higher Ground.
I mean, do you remember the first day they played?
How did I not remember that? How would I not?
Non-stop. Was one of the most miserable times I've never miserable watching football, and that was like, are you guys serious? You're just going to do this on loop for 2 hours?
We walked to the other side to get away from it, and it was still
it's still super loud,
still really loud. one of the UC staffers that was there the first day was standing right like in front of the speakers and was like, I hope they turn this down. Was like, oh, you're in for a long day, friend. You're in for a long day. Like, if you think you're going to be able to stand right here and talk to somebody, you're in for a long day.
Mm-hmm.
I would get behind the speakers and have your conversation.
Has Big 12 beat reporter Justin Williams been out to High Ground yet?
Apparently, he was there Thursday last week when I had radio.
Okay.
But other than that, like he claims he's going to be around. But knowing Justin, he'll probably be there tomorrow when everything's closed and he's that big time now.
Yeah.
Because he's a regional.
Or you just show up and you're like, oh, I didn't know it was closed. I guess you're not going to make me like just get in my car and go back, are you?
Right. I mean, he's got more juice than all of us now. So no, but also what's probably really going to happen, Dave, is he'll just be there Saturday for the scrimmage, like he's become a TV station now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's not doing the hard work. He's doing the easy work.
Get some B-roll in the first 15 minutes and then call it a day.
Yeah. So, or show, he's not going to be there for the scrimmage, but he'll be there with like 15 minutes left.
Yeah. Just make sure he can get some quotes and then take on.
He'll come down and be like, hey, buddy, what did I miss? How'd they look today?
I don't know. Maybe should have been here. I don't know, Steven. We'll ask him the next time I see him. I'll ask him if he got his hands on a dishwasher yet.
No, I think he's a hand wash guy. Like he enjoys the pruny, wrinkly. It's like those guys with like a 7-acre yard that disappear to cut their grass for like 4 hours.
Yeah,
I think it's his escape from having 3 young daughters. Daddy's doing the dishes. Not right.
I figure if I was him, I'd be at High Ground every day just to get away from that situation.
You would think, but I guess his wife works, and somebody has to do daddy daycare.
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else football camp wise? I mean, I think we kind of hit everything. Yeah.
No, I do want to give Keegan his flowers. He's been a phenomenal addition. Great story up on Sauce today. Talked to his high school coach. Bunch of stuff on him and graduating. He's been getting all the videos up promptly. He's been asking great questions at the press conferences, providing some great written content that was missing from the site. So, big thanks to Keegan. He's going to have to become more of a part of these things starting next week when Kelsey has volleyball games 3 nights a week, starting at 7:00 every night. So, out of the frying pan into the fire, kid.
Yep, he'll have to. Aaron get it set up. I can do the intro. We get into the the BYU guest or whatever, and then he might have to hang around for a bit until you can get on.
We'll get there one way or another. We'll make it work. When's the 2 deep going up on the site? Was supposed to be today, but I got caught up in a couple things. So if I don't get it up tonight, which I probably won't when we're done with this, I'll get it up tomorrow, probably early afternoon. I'll have it up before practice on Friday because that was kind of the goal, was before we go into this weekend with the first scrimmage. I wanted to get what the 2 deep kind of looks like. As soon as you can sleep, Daniel. You don't have to wait. You don't have to stay up. It's okay. My guess would be tomorrow, early to mid-afternoon. I'll probably, I've got the kid and the dogs to deal with tomorrow morning. Hopefully they're all calmed down. I'll have some lunch and get the 2 deep up on the website tomorrow, early mid-afternoon. That's my goal. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else. Go back through the nightcaps have been very detailed on camp. Had a lot of camp talk on the BBP on Monday. There's practice reports every day on the website. Keegan's got stories every day from practice, and then all the videos. So we're giving you guys we're giving it all we got, Captain. Like
we're approaching the too much content.
We are providing as much, if not more, content than we've ever provided for camp. So we're giving you. Hopefully, your days are full, keeping up with the camp content. And the key is when you have like a 2-day window like this, that you have the content to kind of get you through the 2-day window. One of the reasons I was slow on the 2 deep today, I wanted Keegan's sauce story to kind of get the flowers today, and then tomorrow the 2 deep will kind of take the lead.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have to say if anybody is listening, watching, whatever, we have to say thank you again to everybody at UC because if they gave us SEC access, we wouldn't have very much content. Or if they gave us the access that 99% of, it seems like, whatever you want to call Power 4.5 football or whatever it is, gets anymore. Like, we wouldn't have interviews with players and coaches. We wouldn't have practice reports. You'd have like, hey, this is what happened in the first 30 minutes, and then they kicked us out.
I mean, Rob Sellers said he's been covering Houston. He hasn't seen a whole practice.
Yeah,
and it's like most places don't allow it. I think Keegan said Indiana would allow 2 practice. You could watch 2 practices a year that they gave as an olive branch to the media.
Yeah,
you could come to 2 full practices a year, and after that you weren't allowed to see anything else.
Pretty good idea of what the majority of those practices were spent doing.
What's that, Dave?
Special teams.
So yeah, that's kind of camp and where we're at. Let's go ahead and timestamp it with your Turtles Brew timestamp. Visit www.turtlesbrew.com for more information and locations on the product. 6% ABV, 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free. It's a bourbon-infused sweet tea. You can find it in 50 locations in the greater Cincinnati area. Go to the website, turtlesbrew.com, and you can find out where to buy it. A portion of the proceeds go to Save the Sea Turtles. You can get it in Toledo, Cincinnati, and expanding now in Central Ohio. So there's your Turtles Brew timestamp. Alan, you want to... Are you there?
Okay. I'm here.
You just paused for a second.
I'm good.
Do you want to get into realignment stuff now?
I'm on a realignment hiatus. I have not looked at the realignment thread in 2 days. It's very liberating. I honestly don't really care. I have some thoughts, and I wanted to a couple of them. Yeah. See.
First, before we if we're gonna do, so I think the smart thing to do right now is associate our home field read with realignment, because they have all of these schools under their umbrella.
Right.
And, now all the conferences are changing. And if you want to just, if you've got new conference mates and you want to go support the conference.
If you want to bear down and rep the A, get an Arizona shirt, you can.
You just go to homefieldapparel.com. They're offering 15% off when you enter promo code BCJ23. Support the people that support us. Go to Home Field Apparel. And if you don't know, Home Field is a premium collegiate apparel brand. They're based in Indianapolis. They emphasize their commitment to creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel. They do vintage designs. It's not the cookie cutter stuff you see everywhere else. They're going to put some stuff out that you look and go, nobody's talked about that for 30 years. And here comes a Home Field shirt. So that's one of my favorite parts. The apparel is as comfortable as it gets. I've said this 100 times. My gray old school Bearcat hoodie is the most comfortable thing I own. So yeah, go to Home Field, 15% off, and you can You can get your Arizona State, your Utah, your Colorado, or any of the other schools. I think you know what they should do? They should do random conference like packages. Like we'll just send you pay us this amount of money. We'll send you 4 pieces of gear from your conference, so that everybody in every conference can refresh and remind themselves.
I don't know. I mean, but like, what if they sent you some UCF stuff?
I wouldn't wear it.
Well, then that would be a waste.
So, like, I think I've told this story I think they owed me like $200 from a previous ad deal, and they were like, "Hey, we were the wires got crossed. We owe you this money," and I was like, "Just send me some T-shirts." And they were like, "Well, are there any limitations?" And I was like, "Yeah, if you send me something Xavier, I'm going to roast you online and burn it. Like I'm not wearing that. So send me anything but that." And they didn't send me Xavier. They sent me a Wisconsin shirt that was like 2 years ago that now is kind of funny.
Yeah.
That I have.
Does it say team on the back, or did you put
it was
like
a wrestling? It was
you
a
put like
national champion. I think it was a national
electrical
champion
tape?
wrestling shirt. I should get team on. I should Sharpie.
No, just get like some electrical tape and put that on.
I got a really cool University of Mines shirt. It's in New Mexico or somewhere.
Colorado.
It's like Colorado. Yeah, really cool one of those. A really cool Hawaii shirt. I got a Roadrunners shirt that was pretty cool. So they did a good job. But I told them, don't send me anything with an X on it.
I mean, do they even have anything?
I think there was something. There's like one small Xavier collection, but that's when you're small time and you've only got 10,000 fans. Like,
it's like
just do one.
Like a Marshall ended our football program type shirt. Throwback.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was like, this is our only bar with the Dana Gardens sign. I know Dana Gardens watches everything that we do. So
I'm sure
that was for him. All right, let's realignment. Apparently, Stanford and Cal might be going to the ACC, Dave.
Here's my auto response. Sure. Why the hell not?
I ranted enough on Monday. I don't have any ranting left.
Yeah, I don't think I have any ranting. I do have a couple of questions, and I'm not gonna take the side of the big bad TV people because I know that obviously, so much of this is driven by TV.
Sure.
And the Big Ten is expanding for the simple fact that Fox is paying them to get
more teams, right?
Oregon and Washington. So like, I can't sit here last week and say that I don't like this for the sport and then say like, oh, I'm totally cool with the TV people. But I keep hearing this thing, especially with the Pac-12, of like, TV is determining, what properties are valuable and they're ruining the sport. And I'm like, no,
your fan base is determining what properties are valuable.
TV is picking the ones that are valuable based on the metrics that they feel are important, and your schools are not meeting those metrics because, let me put it this way, who's the team and program or school or whatever that's not in the Power 5 right now, or whatever, however you want to say it, that sells out their 70,000 seat stadium every weekend, that is in a top 50 media market, that has decades of success? Like, who is TV being like, nah, we don't need them? So they're picking.
There's nobody that's dominating the ratings that TV's like, no, we don't want you.
No, so it's like, yeah, I don't like it, and I know that they got their hands in this shit way too much, but it was all started by presidents, athletic directors years and years and years ago. I mean, in the 80s, you used to only be able to be on TV 3 times a season, and like Notre Dame didn't like that. They wanted to go out and do their own thing. Georgia didn't like that. They wanted to like have the SEC kind of go out and do their own thing. Like going back through the history of all this is very interesting. And I'm sure ADs and presidents now, if they would have known what would have happened, they probably wouldn't have gone through all this, but we're here. So there's kind of no point in talking about that. But like, don't give me this whole like, well, TV's just deciding everything. And you know, I feel so bad for this, that, and the other. It's like,
I mean, TV is deciding everything, but the sport decided that. The sport decided that that's the way they were going to go.
Exactly. That's my point. And it's like they're not like hand picking a bunch of programs because they just feel like it. Like they're going off of what makes them money. And these are the programs that have been making money in the sport for decades. So, you know, Stanford has had good teams. I mean, shit, they had several guys in New York for the Heisman Trophy, and they've won, you know, back then they won BCS games and stuff. But like, you know, that is not a valuable property to television, regardless of like what the overall academics is or what the, you know, and it just goes back to like, you know, they're going to say like the Big Ten, like, yeah, you guys can add Stanford, but we're not giving you any extra money for it.
Right.
Like, I'm sure Fox
have to split up the pie already.
Fox was like, we'll give you this money for Oregon and Washington. If you guys want to add Stanford and Cal too, go ahead. But then you're just splitting the money we're giving you for Oregon and Washington 2 more times because we're not giving it to you for them. So, you know, and then, you know, I know last week we talked and I kind of said like, I don't like it from just because I'm just like a general college football fan. I think it's bad for the sport that like a whole portion of the country like is just kind of exiled out. But like, I'm a UC fan. I really don't.
Exiled out, Dave. They're going to be folded into time slots that people watch.
Oh right, yeah. Only people like me who have no life and watch for 12 straight hours and
No. You're missing my point.
Oh.
Now USC and UCLA and Oregon.
Oh, those teams, yeah.
They're going to be on it at 3:30.
Yeah, big noon kickoff.
Those programs are now going to have a chance to be more relevant because they're going to be on in time slots that people pay attention to. When the Pac-12, that's the thing I never got about the Pac-12. They can only play football at 7 o'clock at night on the West Coast. They couldn't kick off on the West Coast.
Is they could have, but they weren't going to get the money that they wanted. So that's the thing is like, I always joke about this. It's a life thing, but it works here just as well as it does anywhere else. You almost always have a choice. You might not like the choice.
Sure.
You might not like the outcome or what you're going to have to do for that choice, but you have a choice. These schools had a choice. Like, I don't want to hear this bullshit of we didn't have a choice. We had to move because the money. No, you had a choice.
Well, did you see what the Washington president said tonight?
The Washington AD, yeah.
Or AD?
Washington
the most
State.
Truthful thing I've ever heard.
The Washington State. Washington. No, I think I only saw what Pat Chun said from Washington State.
Oh, hold on.
Excuse me.
Well, here, let me find it and talk.
No, but I'm like, you had a choice. You could have stayed in the Pac-12, but you think you need all that money. Like you could have played games at noon local time and 3:30 local time. But ESPN told you they weren't going to give you as much money as if you played those games at 7 o'clock local time. You chose to do that. Nobody made you do that.
Right.
You chose, and it goes for every conference. Like every conference makes a choice. And they're just making them all based on money now because of fear and greed and like, you know, Oregon and Washington are so fucking scared that they're going to get left behind that they chose to take basically the same amount of money UC is getting for the next 6 years just to be in the Big Ten. So in 7 years, when their contract comes up, then they can start getting a bunch of money. They chose to do that. So I don't want to hear you say like we had no choice. We wanted the Pac-12 to stick together. It could have stuck together. You guys just chose to get more money. So
he basically said, and I don't know if it was the AD or the president, but basically said, this is what happens when you have bad leadership. One of the outcomes that happen when you have bad leadership is that you die.
Yeah, that was the Washington State AD.
Oh, that was the Washington State AD.
But I will push back on him and say, who the fuck voted these guys into their positions? You guys did. The ADs and the presidents, you voted them in. So don't sit here and tell me this is what happens when you have bad leadership. You voted them in. You listened to what they had to say. You let Larry Scott take you on this charade of the Pac-12 network.
Yeah, of course.
And then you didn't fire him as soon as you realized that it was a total sham and that he couldn't even get you on direct TV. You didn't do anything about it. So do not tell me this is what happens when you have you're the ones that hired him.
But he was right though. It is what happens when you have bad leadership, but it's their fault. They put the bad leadership in place and then followed the bad leadership, and then he ran it got run into the ground.
But that's why I'm
looking back at the ashes, going, "Well, that's
I'm laughing at all these college football media people who are like, Pat Chung, he's pulling no punches. He's telling the truth. And I'm like, look in the mirror, man. This is because of you guys.
He is telling the truth, but they are also culpable in that truth.
Exactly. So, I'm tired. It's something that I think about all the time, whether it's in real life, in sports, whatever. You always have a choice. You might not like what that choice is.
Right. But you have a choice.
You have a choice. You got an ADs and presidents and conferences for a long time have chose to, we're just going to go where the money is because we're afraid that if we don't have the same money as these schools who already have more, that's the thing, we'll do a UC Ohio State thing now that UC is in power. It doesn't matter. UC will never catch them because they have had so many years to build up the equity, to build up the coffers, to these Pac-12 schools or ACC schools back when they added, Pitt and Louisville and Syracuse and both, those schools chase the money. How's it going, Boston College? How's it going, Syracuse?
Right.
You're never going to catch the Clemsons and the Florida States and the SEC and the Big Ten. So you may as well be happy.
Well, but here's the thing, Dave. Don't they all think they're going to be Clemson?
That's the problem. Is they can't get left behind. I like that mentality. I don't want a coach to come in and be like, guys, I don't know. I've looked at this roster and I think I'm a decent coach, but I'm not that good.
Fucking awful.
Every coach comes in and thinks that they're gonna turn it around.
Yeah, but what I mean is everybody thinks Clemson was always Charlie Brown, right? The football always got pulled. They never could get over the hump. They had some success way back when. Yeah, but then all of a sudden they hit the exact coach at the exact right time in a conference that everybody else was going down and they were on the way up. Everybody tells themselves we're the next Clemson. Yeah. We're the next school that's gonna
how many schools probably from the G5 have you see in that situation?
Sure.
We can do that. We can do that. We're in Texas or we're in Florida. That's just as good as being in Ohio. And they had, their fans probably don't know that. Some of our fans probably don't know it. There was legitimate studies in the 70s, maybe 80s. I don't remember the exact time of do we need to get rid of football?
No. We are getting rid of football. It had to be saved.
Right.
Football was on the way out here.
For them to be able to do what they've done is frankly remarkable because there's no track record of that at any point in the 100-year history plus of football at the University of Cincinnati.
Yeah, but Clemson became Ohio State, Alabama.
Yeah. But hey, good luck trying. Good luck.
Stays open.
Good luck chasing that. All you other schools thinking that could one day be you.
But that's what they think.
Well,
they think we're going to be the next Clemson. We're going to we're going to hire that hire, and he's going to stay.
If they were right, we wouldn't have half. If they were right, we wouldn't have half the coaching turnover every 3 years we have.
Of course, they're not right, but that's what they think.
Yeah. So, whether it's, I'm beyond this, like, ACC, you want to add them, you want to add SMU, my response, sure, whatever.
Good luck. Yeah. Good luck.
Now, the other one I wanted to bring up is, I know Rick Pitino mentioned it. I've seen some other people mention it, like, just let football do their thing. And, like, we'll do all of these other sports on our own. And my question is, okay, who's paying for those other sports?
Football. Still.
So you think football is going to be cool with, like, you guys do your own thing? We're going to subsidize you.
And it's already happening, though.
I don't think
that's what's already happening.
Not to that extent, though, because
yes,
if I'm football, then I'm going, then this is my TV deal, not yours, and we're keeping all the money.
Yeah, but that's already how it happens. Like, what, do you really believe that, like, basketball is to a smaller extent, but, like, that's already what's happening. That's already what's been happening
but
for the longest time.
But no one is saying that. No one is like, you're breaking off and doing your total own thing. If you're telling me that we're breaking off, and because you want to have regionalized conferences, which I totally understand, where you see whatever not softball because they don't have a softball team. Baseball, we use baseball, plays Wright State,
West Virginia,
Xavier, Ohio State, West Virginia, Pitt, Kentucky. Great. But the cash cow over here, football, you're not getting my TV money.
But they've always gotten their TV money.
Because they've always been together. When you tell me we're going to break off, then I'm telling you, well, then we're not the same anymore.
I understand that from a Dave standpoint, like how Dave views things standpoint. That's not how it's going to work inside the athletic departments. Football is still going to fund everything. And then, I don't love the general, like, thought of that, but I understand it completely. Like, why does women's soccer have to go to Utah and BYU?
I don't disagree. But, like, there are sports at UC that are not going to be in the Big 12.
Right. So shouldn't everything operate under that umbrella?
I don't know. I mean, I think you'd get big pushback from the football side of things, being like, we were cool with subsidizing.
That's what you have an AD for, to say, look, like, yeah, okay, you're going to get, okay, you're bringing in $46 million a year. You're going to get 30 of it, and we're going to need 16 to do all this other shit.
Yeah, I don't know.
The football coaches don't run the athletic department.
Oh,
they don't. Well,
south of the Mason-Dixon line, they sure as shit do.
But you get my point. There is an athletic director. There is somebody that oversees.
Yes, and a lot of places there is someone with the title athletic director.
And then the football coach makes the decisions, and the athletic director says, "Yes, sir. Thank you. Please, may I have another?" You're right. I'm not against.
I think it's harder than just saying, "Well, just have football. Let football do their own thing." I think it's more. I think there's more nuance, and it's way more difficult to parse through how that would truly work. Like how, then just say, "Let football do their own thing. Let them form whatever conference they want to form. Let them, and then all the other sports are going to do something totally different." And
But the football thing goes back to a rant that I had Monday night. When have these people ever gotten along?
Oh,
like when people talk about, like, well, the SEC and the Big Ten are just going to do their own thing. They hate each other. I mean, their ideology is so polar opposite.
Not even just the SEC and the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten, Pac-12, and ACC couldn't have a fake alliance for more than like 3 months before Kevin Ward pulled a shiv out and stuck it in George Klikov's back.
Well, yeah, because why? Because the Big Ten was the power, like they were the power member of that alliance.
It's not his fault. USC and UCLA called them, and if we didn't take them, somebody else would have. Just like Greg.
Right.
I mean, Greg Sankey is 100% right. If they didn't take Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC, somebody else would have. But please save me.
The Big Ten would have.
Please save me your indignation about how we don't really have anything to do with all this nonsense that's going on, and we wish it was still we're a regionalized conference that doesn't need the fourth time zone, and
that now has Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Missouri.
Total shot at the Big Ten by saying that.
Sure.
But how brave of you to get up there and say that when ESPN and you basically colluded against Bob Bowlesby, who you were working with on a college football playoff expansion committee. Like 3 people. You, Bob Bowlesby, Craig Thompson of the Mountain West. And you took his teams because ESPN told you to. And Oklahoma and Texas were ready to go lose to just a different team. They were tired of losing.
Drinkwitz at Missouri comes out and has this big long rant. That guy was in 5 schools in 6 years. And he's at a school now that left and is one of the linchpins of destabilizing everything because they weren't happy with the Longhorn Network. Guess who they're in a conference with now?
Yep.
Shut up.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the first AD to just reverse whatever, just to be like, hey, bottom line, our financials are bad. We had a chance to go to another conference, and it's going to help us out. And I don't know if that's going to result in any more wins on the field, but we just needed to do this because we needed the money. And we think we can be good if we have the money, but if we stayed here and the gap in the money kept growing, we know we wouldn't be able to compete on the level that we think we could if we had more money. Just say that.
The beauty of it all is, if you're in a conference, you're all competing with the same money. And with the 12-team playoff, this is where some of this is just fascinating, because if a lot of these schools would have just held on to what they were doing, they would have had an easy path to the playoff.
Well, yeah.
Or an easier path to the playoff and an easier access to a lot of that money that they're now they're going to get it, but they're not going to win. You know what they're going to be doing? Every 3 years, they're going to be firing and hiring a new coach. And they're going to be paying $8, $10, $12 million for this coach that they fired that signed a 6-year contract, and you fired him after 3 years, and you're going to pay $15 million for him to go away because $5 million a year is the going rate for an average run-of-the-mill coach. And that money that was the difference, that was the gap between where you were at and where you wanted to be, is now going to be money you're going to be paying to that coach and his staff to go away. And then just when you're done with that, you're going to be firing your next coach and paying him $18 million a year, because there's going to be 3 years left on his $6 million a year contract, because everything continues to grow. And it's a never ending cycle.
Did you notice after what I brought up last week, what articles started popping up this week about all this?
What?
Trimming the fat, baby.
Yeah.
Gonna happen. They're already writing the articles. What is Rutgers done since they went to the Big Ten? And why would Ohio State be like, hey, why are we getting the same amount as they are? And
what the hell is Maryland doing for the Big Ten?
They're already starting to write the articles and the drawing up the pseudo divisions and new conferences, and these teams, these schools, sorry Mississippi State, you're just not in.
The SEC's going to have to drop 9 schools.
How funny is it going to be when they drop Kentucky and add UC?
I don't know that that'll ever happen, but it would be very funny. It would be very funny. But honestly, Who's the SEC going to have to drop?
Oh well,
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt probably not because of Nashville and just
they're always going to keep them because they're the smart kid.
I think they would. I think they would drop Missouri and the Mississippi schools before they drop Vandy.
Well, okay, but we're talking teams in the discussion.
Oh yeah,
Vandy, Kentucky, Mississippi State,
Missouri,
Mizzou,
maybe South Carolina. I mean, they only came in the 80s. Like they're not
right. That's not a legacy.
Nope. Yeah, I mean
they're at 16. We're already at 6.
Yep.
That they could drop.
Go to every conference. Could very easily be like, hey, ESPN calls and is like, hey, here's the deal. The deal we've been giving you, we'll give you this much more, but you got to get rid of 4 of these schools. You know how fast they would do it? like you think the ACC, the ESPN goes to the ACC and be like, we'll tear up your grant of rights and get you out of this 2036 nightmare, but you got to get rid of Boston College, Syracuse,
Wake Forest,
Wake. I mean, we pick the schools because they don't bring us any value.
Right.
So these schools bring us value. We'll pay you for these schools, and we'll pay you a lot. But you got too many damn schools, and you need to cut them out. Do it, or else we're You don't think they're going to do that? They've been doing it for 30 years. They've been following the money. They've been doing what the networks want for 30 years. They're not going to stop now.
And the networks are now in a position where they're trimming the fat.
Right. Like, what if in 10, 15 years the network goes...
You think if ESPN will fire Susie Colbert, they won't fire Ole Miss?
Well, like, what if they just go, we want all the NBA. So either we're going to spend this money on the NBA or we're going to spend it on you, but you got to get rid of these 4 teams.
Yeah.
Whatever the sport may be. Somebody go.
Like we're going all in on
we want
Sunday night football.
Right. I mean, who knows what it is?
Yeah.
But yeah.
We're already all in on Sunday night football, but you get my point.
But maybe it's another network. Maybe it's CBS, Fox, whatever. Fox is like, we have a chance to take something else. Who knows what it is at that point? But yeah, I mean, we've seen all this stuff happen for how long? I don't want to hear anything about like, oh, that'll never happen. They'll never get rid of schools. Okay. Fox just bought Oregon and Washington for the Big Ten. Don't tell me for 1 second that they won't turn around and go, now you're going to get rid of schools.
They just said Oregon State, Washington State.
Sorry. Yeah.
They put their torches out on the island.
Yeah.
Survivor, you're out.
Great. You got 1 million people in Washington that watch the Apple Cup. We don't care. We want Washington at Michigan because 10 million people will watch that.
Right. We don't give 2 shits about Washington State, Oregon State. We're never going to pay for that game.
Yeah. So I don't want to hear that could never happen. And you just pray to
I'm not saying it could never happen. It's going to be uncomfortable as hell when when it really comes to fruition, like when they have to do it.
That's realignment I want to be paying attention to. That's my kind of realignment. That's where Dan Simon excels.
I mean, you're right. Like that's the part of it that's going to be fascinating. Fascinating.
You can't tell me that we're going to buy teams for a conference, but eventually we're not going to tell the conference, okay, we paid you a lot of money over these last however many years, and these 2 schools aren't pulling their fair share, so get rid of them.
The numbers say every Vanderbilt game, and this is where Kentucky's probably going to be safe for whatever reason. A lot of people watch Kentucky football. Like
I just threw that out as a joke.
I know. But like here's this team that here are the numbers for 13 weeks, and they never got over 1 million viewers.
Or they only did when they played Georgia or Alabama.
They played Bama and Georgia, and those were the only 2 games that anybody watched. And all it was to watch them get their dick kicked in 48-12. And every other game was under 1 million viewers, and it didn't matter where we put it. They're not of value. we're not making money on those games. They have to go.
100% plausible.
It's coming.
100%. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it should, but please do not try to tell me that it can't.
What's the number? I think it's 60.
I think there will be 4 16-team conferences.
64.
I think when it's all said and done, that's where it will be.
I agree. I think 64 is a number that college sports fans are familiar and comfortable with. I know people look at me like I'm crazy when I say that, but a lot of it is like, okay, like this is college football is now the NCAA tournament.
Well, it wouldn't get to that point where it's like a 6-game tournament to find a winner.
Well, no. But you know what I'm saying when they're selling it,
right?
In the marketing of it, we have 4 16-team brackets.
6 regional, all back to regional schools, like-minded schools. Everybody's within a couple hours of each other. Maybe in the West it's a little bit different because you just have less schools to put into a conference.
More space.
But yeah, I mean, I think 4 16-team leagues is where it ends up going, and everybody else can do what they want.
Here's where I disagree, Daniel. Daniel says 2 by 24 is what he thinks. Only need 48 teams to control the lion's share of the U.S. market. The NFL does it with 32 teams. Daniel, consider this. How did the NFL get to 32? They started at 8, then 16. Then there was, 2 leagues, and they merged the leagues. They built to 32. College football has been built for 100+ years. There are more than 48 teams that have passionate fan bases that draw ratings. And if you're a TV entity, you are not cutting 20 teams that bring what you want. You're just not doing it. There's too many people wanting the inventory and wanting that. You know what would happen if you go to 48 teams? There'd be a bunch of open time slots on these channels where they're not able to sell college football. So that's where I think the difference is when people talk about college football is going to cut down to 32 teams or 48 is not that far away from the number. But I think there are far more than 48 fan bases in college football that are deeply invested in their program. And that takes me out to 60.
I also don't know if like the actual conferences would want to manage 24 schools.
Well, 48, it is like 2 24-team conferences. If you really consolidate that down into the best of the best, is a bloodbath.
Yeah.
It's a bloodbath. There's too many teams that are used to being good that in that situation would be 5 and 7 or whatever, regularly, and would see the cash cow dry up. So I think the number is closer to 60. That's why. Like I just think when you think about, okay, well, the NFL's only at 32. Well, it took the NFL 50, 60 years to get to 32.
It's also it's 2 different conferences of 16 teams.
Yeah.
So it's not one 32-team conference.
Right. I'm just talking about it's about brands ultimately, right, Dave?
Yeah, for sure.
There are more than 48 prominent brands in college football.
I mean, it was about cable boxes for a while and markets, and now I think it is actually about brands, like, and I think a guy for me in rivalries, and what will the casual fan, what will the I'm not really a fan of these two teams, but I will watch this game. Like, I will sit down and I will watch this entire game. And I don't really have a emotional or financial stake in either team. I think that is where we are now versus, let's just add Rutgers because we're trying to launch the Big Ten network and we want all their cable boxes. We want them to have to pay for a channel that we don't care if they actually watch or not.
They knew they were never going to watch. They knew New York was never going to watch
Right.
Rutgers.
But they got how many millions of people paying for a channel that they didn't even know they had.
There's no baby.
So that's why, I'm looking at Twitter now, and there are tweets about the ACC and meetings and a disagreement in the conference. No kidding.
Boston College doesn't want SMU, Dave.
Pete Thamel, SMU has also been bandied about along with Cal and Stanford, and those conversations aren't headed anywhere either, per ESPN stuff. You don't say.
No shit, man.
I do love that SM, and I like giving SMU. I have a thing about SMU, I guess. But I like that they're just being like, we don't even want the distro money. We just need in the conference.
Yeah, we don't care.
Have you seen that? They're like, we're willing to literally not take any television money for 5 years. We just want in that bad.
We're in. As long as we know we got a check coming in 2029, we're good.
And then I'm like, can they maybe make a conference AAC championship game first before everybody hammers their computer keys about how they're a sleeping giant, and if they get into a power conference, watch out. I'm like, how about they do something of note in their crappy conference first?
My favorite part about SMU as a sleeping giant is that it's all based on they cheated better than anybody 50 years ago, 45, 50 years before I was alive. So that they have to be SMU's got to be ready for 2023.
Yeah. I did just get I was tagged in a tweet that the Clifton Kroger has a lot of Cincy Light right now.
Nice. Hopefully it'll be there Saturday so I can grab some.
I picked up a couple 12 packs the other day.
I haven't really been in a position to grab any yet. I checked the Independence Kroger today, and it was not available at the Independence Kroger, unfortunately.
The ACC.
How impressive is that? That shit is selling out across the city fast.
Yeah.
Fast. Yeah. I've seen probably 15, 20 spots that they got a pretty good sized shipment of it in, and it was gone in a day. Somebody said the Party Central in Florence, which I was going to try to get to this evening, got it in yesterday and was gone by 11 o'clock this morning.
Jeez. They better can some more fast.
I think they don't know what they got themselves into. I'm convinced of that. You got anything else?
I don't think so.
That was a full show. Good stuff on the Houston Cougars. Really good stuff on camp. A lot of stuff on realignment that's not what you're getting spoon-fed to you on Twitter from two guys that have lived it for a decade. Thanks to the Holy Grail, especially thanks to the Holy Grail, back in for another full year, helping support Bearcat Journal, not only via this podcast, but sending Keegan on the road. to cover the Bearcats as they go through their first season in the Big 12. So they are the best. Thanks to Team Ticker right there, the new CPAW, teamticker.com. Thanks to Turtles Brew. Thanks to Home Field Apparel. Thanks to you. Thanks to our guys from the Houston site. And we will see you next week. It's going to be a late one probably next week because I've got a volleyball game that starts at 7. So it might be 8:30, 8:45-ish. But we'll be back in this spot.
Till you join. We will be on at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, you'll be on at 8 o'clock. I'll be on whenever I'm on. Aaron is going to be the de facto co-host of this show until I can arrive. We'll see you next time. That is the BCJ podcast brought to you by the Holy Grail right here on BearcatJournal.com.